it is great to see so many beautiful faces with us today. My name is Penny Featherstone. I use the pronouns she and her. I want to just remind people to silence their electronic devices. I've been known to forget. And may I just see a show of hands of those that are visiting today? You don't have to get up or anything, just a show of hands. Oh, welcome. We also appreciate those who have been coming back again and again. And we're glad you're here. Announcements. I have one announcement here in small print. Thank you very much, Jack. On October 15th, we'll have a service, What Do You Mean by Chosen Family? Our presenter will be our chaplain, Trista Bluen, a member of UUCP. Family has come to be defined in many ways over human history. Some consider it the bedrock of society. Trista Bluen will delve into how vital family is to our survival and why honoring the different concepts of family is an essential part of our UU principles. We need that support. And there are many different kinds of families. This service will be followed by a potluck luncheon honoring our church family. So that is October 15th. Bring something to share. We'll have a table to put the goodies on, and there will be vegetarian as well as non-vegetarian things, desserts. You know, bring something for that on October 15th. Okay, one more thing that I was going to mention is that our group that is newly starting, the Heathen Kinship, is a pagan group, and it will be meeting on the first and third Sundays of the month in the teen room, and they are preparing for our Halloween, Samhain, Day of the Dead service. And there will be a treasure hunt for the kids later that afternoon. So if you want to contribute to that, you'll find more information about that before the end of October. Okay. It is time for our centering music. We're inviting the congregation to sing with us number 219, "Oh Hear My People," and the choir will come up to lead and be a part of. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that burns in the heart's secret places. Blessed is the heart with strength to stop its beating for honor's sake. Blessed is the match consumed in kindling flame. That's by Hannah Sinesh. Thank you very much, Jerry. So, our opening words are responsive reading, number 634. It got curled around somehow, and I didn't notice it. It's a long one, but I think it's important for us to share. Now is the time for turning. You'll read the italics. The birds are beginning to turn and are heading once more toward the south. The animals are beginning to turn for leaves, birds, and animals, turning comes instinctively. It takes an act of will for us to make a turn. It means breaking with old habits. It means admitting that we have been wrong, and this is never easy. It means losing face. It means starting all over again, and this is always painful. It means saying, I'm sorry. It means recognizing that we have the ability to change. These things are hard to do. But once we turn, we will be trapped forever in yesterday's ways. God, help us to turn from callousness to sensitivity, from hostility to love, from pettiness to purpose, from envy to contentment, from carelessness to discipline, from fear to faith. Turn us around, God, and bring us back toward you. Revive our lives at this beginning. And turn us toward each other, by Jack Reimer. If you're willing to stand for our covenant, we appreciate that, and it will be here. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Very good, thank you. Be seated. And we have a story to be read by Bradley Vinson. And I hope the children and everyone will enjoy it.
Hello, everyone. This is my guest, Gary. If the kids would come and sit around me, I didn't have time to make slides for this to go up on the presentation. So if you want to see the pictures, come sit up here. So this book is called Anne Frank and the Remembering Tree. Hey, Raymond, thanks for coming. You all know who Anne Frank is? A little bit, maybe? Well, this story takes place, is from the perspective of the tree outside of a place where she lived for a while.
Can I hold this for you?
Well, oh, no, okay. I was planted in the heart of Amsterdam, a city of skinny streets, of canals and bridges. I could see the tall bell tower of the church in the distance. I looked over the buildings and watched people on their bicycles Children in the houses around the courtyard picked my chestnuts when they fell to the ground in autumn. That's a horse chestnut tree, and the fruit is not for eating, mothers told their sons and daughters as they collected the green, spiky shells with the dark nuts inside. I liked it when children used my chestnuts to make puppets and play games. I loved to hear them laugh. Smiles and laughter were like the sunshine and rain that helped me to grow. One day, people along the canals of Amsterdam stopped smiling and laughing. There were German soldiers everywhere. I heard people call them Nazis. The Nazis hated anyone who was not like them, especially the Jewish people. They wanted to get rid of all of the Jews in Europe. I didn't understand why anyone would want to do this, but I was just a tree. I did not like the sound of black boots marching on the cobblestone sidewalks, the sirens or the shouting in the streets. Why wouldn't people who liked different kinds of trees and flowers also like many different kinds of people? It made no sense to me, but I was just a tree. I had always looked into the windows of the houses around the courtyard. In most windows, I saw people working and children playing. When the soldiers came, people began covering their windows, so I couldn't see inside anymore. But the tiny attic window of the narrow brick house behind Otto Frank's business offices had no window shade. For a long time, the rooms were empty, and then one day, Otto's whole family came to live there. They called their new home the Secret Annex. The Franks were Jews. They were hiding from the Nazis. Before long, 4 other people joined them. I couldn't understand how 8 people could live in such a small place, but I was just a tree. At certain times, all 8 people would gather around a small radio to listen to news about the war. I liked to watch Otto's daughters. The older one was called Margot. She was 16 years old. Anne was 13. Both sisters liked to write in their diaries about what was happening and how they were feeling. Margot was very quiet and shy. She never let me see what she wrote. Anne would climb up to the attic, sit on a wooden crate, and listen to the church bells chime. Because I looked into the window, I could see Anne writing in her red and white checked diary. She was writing about me. She wrote that as long as she could see blue sky and clouds and me, she could be happy. Her words made me happy too. Anne described the ways I've changed through the seasons. My white flowers in spring, my dark green leaves in summer, and my chestnuts in autumn. She even marveled at how the rain froze like diamonds on my winter branches. Anne and Margot, come out and play, I called to them through the attic window. Come sit in my shade, pick my chestnuts, and play games. But even though I was just a tree, I knew they couldn't. They were afraid. Sometimes Anne and Margot would climb up to the attic to get away from all the adults. They would read books and look up at the attic window to see the rooftops of all the houses and the bell tower of the church. Often they laughed. Why are you laughing? I would ask. What are you thinking? Anne and Margot answered by writing to me in their diaries. Being a tree doesn't stop you from feeling what people feel, and when someone loves you, you know it, and it helps you grow. Anne and Margot kept growing too. Sometimes at twilight, they would come to the attic and speak softly to each other. I wanted to hear what they were saying, but even though I was just a tree, I understood that their words were just between them. Then one day, in late summer, the Franks heard heavy footsteps, and a group of Nazi soldiers burst into the room. They made everyone in the secret annex go with them, including Anne and Margot. Don't leave, I called after them. Come outside, I will hide you in my branches. But Anne and Margot couldn't hear. The shouting of the soldiers was too loud. For many days and nights, I kept looking in the window Margot would return, but they never did. Several years later, Otto Frank came back alone. "Where are Anne and Margot?" I asked, but only children can understand the language of trees. Then a good friend who had helped the Franks while they lived in the secret annex gave Otto Anne's diary. "I saved it, hoping someone would come back," she said. Otto held the red and white checkered book in his hands. "And Margot's?" he asked. She lowered her eyes. "We never found it." Years passed, winters, springs, summers, and falls. I missed Anne and Margot and their dreams. Margot had wanted to be a nurse to help bring new babies into the world. Anne wanted to be a writer. Before long, people were reading Anne's diary and coming to look at me. They came to see the tree she saw from the window of the secret annex. I was just a tree, but Anne had made me famous. I was glad that people remembered Anne and Margot when they saw me. Even though people cared for me, eventually I became sick. They put metal beams around me so I could stand, and then one day a big storm wind blew so hard that I broke. I was 170 years old. 170. I couldn't stand anymore. People took pieces from my branches to grow into new little trees called saplings, and one day those saplings would be 100 feet tall. I was just one tree, but now I am many. People planted my saplings in places around the world as reminders of what happened to Anne and Margot and what hatred can do. They planted them so that everywhere adults and children will recall the hope and promise of two young girls who loved a tree and the tree who remembered them. The end. All right, if you all will join us in singing children.
This is our time for our offering, which helps you support our church and the work that we do within the walls and beyond. And the choir will come up to sing to you during the offering. Our guest, Jerome Gordon, is a friend of Dolly's, and he is senior editor of the New English, is it New English or New England Review?
It's called The New English Review.
The New English Review. And immediate past president of B'nai Israel. Jerry is a former producer and co-host of 2 international national weekly programs for Salem Media and Israel News Talk, addressing the current anti-Semitic behaviors locally and nationally. Recently, Mr. Gordon was instrumental in obtaining FEMA funding to protect his congregation and spoke on this topic on CHIN Radio Toronto. Please give a warm welcome to Jerry Gordon.
Baruch Hashem, the blessings of God be upon you. I also want to thank my good friend Dolly for consideration of this topic today, as well as your leader, Penny Featherstone. The topic I bring to you today is called the debate over what anti-Semitism is and why it should concern all Americans. During the Q&A that follows, you will find out that even that term, anti-Semitism, is a misnomer. This evening, many Jewish congregations will observe a 26-hour period of introspection, reflection, and prayers to expiate sins committed against God and fellow man in a public confessional, hoping to have their fate sealed in the book of life for a good year, the year 5784 in the Hebrew calendar. It is Yom Kippur, the finale of the 10 days that began with Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, to ensure their safety of worship. During Yom Kippur, many Jewish congregations have availed themselves of federal security grants and their own funding to virtually fortify their places of worship and employ armed security guards against the threat of violent anti-Semitic attacks. Attacks that have occurred in synagogues, Chabad Jewish centers and temples in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Poway, California, and Colleyville, Texas. Attacks fermented by neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and even some Muslim extremists that have taken the lives or held hostage American Jews. Locally, concerns have arisen since the arrest and arraignment of 4 teenage boys here in Pensacola who engaged in the campaign of anti-Semitic graffiti and vandalism, attacking a Chabad Jewish center, a Reformed temple, a mosque, and local civil rights advocacy center. Florida has become the emerging center for white supremacist and neo-Nazi groups, using both social media and even laser projections of hate messages. American Jews represent less than 2.4% of the U.S. population, but incidents of Jewish hatred comprise 63.1% of all religiously hate crimes reported to the FBI in 2022. The Anti-Defamation League reported in its audit of anti-Semitic incidents released in March of this year, anti-Semitic incidents surged to historic levels in 22, with a total of 3,697 incidents recorded across the U.S. That's an increase of 36% over 21. So, the audit's findings are pretty disturbing. Assaults. 111 incidents were characterized as an assault, defined as cases where Jewish people or people perceived to be Jewish, which is interesting, You may recall that happened to Sikhs not many years ago in Milwaukee. Were targeted with physical violence accompanied by evidence of anti-Semitic animus. That was an increase of 26% compared to 21. Harassment, 2,298 incidents were categorized as harassment, defined as cases where one or more Jewish people were harassed with anti-Semitic slurs, stereotypes, or conspiracy theories. Acts of harassment increased 29% over 21. Vandalism, which is the problem we have in this community, comprised 1,288 incidents. That's defined as cases where property was damaged along with evidence of anti-Semitic intent or had an anti-Semitic impact on Jews. Acts of anti-Semitic vandalism increased 51% over 21. Swastikas, which are generally interpreted as a symbol of anti-Semitic hatred, were up 37% from last year. The Advocacy Center in Pensacola, if you read the articles about it, was plastered with swastikas. Then there were problems about attacks on Jewish synagogues, Jewish community centers, and schools. That's an increase over 21. 219 incidents were reported at more than 130 university campuses across the country. Even in non-Jewish K through 12 schools, there were 494 incidents reported across the country, an increase of close to 50%. Then there's the problem about so-called anti-Zionism, tied to opposition to the state of Israel. Zionism remained at concerning levels with 241 incidents, accounting for 6.5% of the total in 22. The largest number of these incidents occurred with anti-Israel groups such as Witness for Peace and Students for Justice in Palestine. 69 of the incidents were cases of harassment. In one instance, an anti-Israel activist physically assaulted a Jewish person. Most importantly to recognize is the emergence of what I talked about earlier. Of these incidents, 241 took the form of white supremacist groups using propaganda to foment anti-Israel and anti-Semitic beliefs. Just this past week, we had the occurrence of Mr. Elon Musk, if you're familiar with what transpired. Here we had the irony of the Anti-Defamation League being threatened with a suit by Mr. Musk for $22 billion in damages for the formers, meaning the ADLs, attacking the X, the former Twitter platform, for hosting anti-Semitic social media. This after Mr. Musk defended the free speech of Keith Woods, an Irish white supremacist and self-proclaimed anti-Semite, posting the hashtag ban the ADL. Musk liked Woods' hashtag while claiming he is not anti-Semitic. There was a comment made regarding that. The ADL reported that Twitter had refused to remove tweets or accounts that incited violence against Jews. 2 months later, it followed up with a report that Musk's decision to reinstate those accounts had previously been banned. The tweet, in reply to threads of many of these accounts the ADL found, became magnets for vile anti-Semitic content. They were rife with such familiar anti-Semitic tropes as conspiracy theories about George Soros and the Rothschild banking family controlling global politics, finance, and media, and accusations that Jews were aimed at destroying the West by promoting transgender identities and lifestyles and replacing white people via immigration. Beyond that, stating his determination to clear out our platform's name on the matter of anti-Semitism, and declared, "I am pro-free speech, but against anti-Semitism of any kind." Now, the debate we're going to talk about today is about the recently released this year strategy by the White House, the Biden White House, I might add, to combat anti-Semitism. The release of the strategy noted the broad range of solicitation of inputs in formulating the strategy. It was informed by input from more than 1,000 stakeholders from every sector of the American society. It outlined over 100 new initiatives and actions by executive branches. And it encouraged Congress to pass legislation that would counter anti-Semitism. One crucial aspect of it was a recognition of anti-Israel hatred. The release further noted the strategy reaffirms the United States' unshakable commitment to the State of Israel's right to exist, its legitimacy, and its security. It makes clear that when Israel is singled out because of anti-Jewish hatred, that is anti-Semitism. How many of you know about what I'm about to discuss? It's called the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is based in Stockholm, Sweden. The IHRA developed a definition of anti-Semitism that was adopted now by 42 countries in the majority of states in this country. The IHRA definition was adopted at a plenary session in Bucharest, Romania in May of 2016. Let me read to you what the masthead is. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. So they gave several indications here. Manifestations might include the targeting of the State of Israel, conceived as a Jewish collective. But importantly, it said, however, criticism of Israel, similar to that leveled against any other country, cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism frequently charges Jews with conspiring to harm humanity, and it is often used to blame Jews for why things go wrong. It is expressed in speech, writing, visual forms, and actions, and employs sinister stereotypes and negative character traits. Let me give you some contemporary examples of what the IHRA definition is calling for. Calling for or aiding or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or an extremist view of religion. Making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as a collective, especially but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions, the protocols of Zion. Guess who influenced Hitler's doctrine? Anybody know? Henry Ford. Henry Ford published the famous Tsarist forgery called the Protocols of Zion in a newspaper he owned called the Dearborn Independent in the 1920s. Hitler picked up on it while he was crafting his opus, Mein Kampf, when he was incarcerated after the Munich Putsch in 1923. In honor of Mr. Ford, Hitler personally decorated him in 1937, before World War II. Strange world, eh? So we go on to talk about other aspects of this, using the symbols and images associated with classical anti-Semitism, claims of Jews killing Jesus or the blood libel. Fortunately, after almost 2 millennia, the Catholic Church adopted and reformed its doctrine in 1965 in a famous papal bull that was published after a worldwide conference. The IHRA says that anti-Semitic acts are criminal when they are so defined by law. Criminal acts are anti-Semitic when they're targets of attacks, whether they are people or property, such as building, schools, places of worship, and cemeteries, are selected because they are perceived to be Jewish and or linked to Jews. Now, within my own community, there's been a difference of opinion about adopting the IHRA definition. There are members of certain Jewish leadership organizations who feel that essentially anti-Semitism should not address the question of anti-Zionism. Realize that. And let me give you some examples, in fact, of why it hasn't been adopted here. In February of this year, the American Bar Association removed the IHRA definition from a resolution condemning anti-Semitism after the ACLU argued it would harm Palestinians and undermine free speech. In January, the Biden administration delayed adoption of the IHRA definition in adjudicating universities' students' claims of anti-Semitism. An article about the Biden program in Jewish Currents had the interesting comment: national plan reflects the debate over anti-Semitism. It says, while generally promising more of the same, the Biden plan signaled in multiple ways that progressive groups have succeeded in making Jewish politics a contested space. So we end with a couple of questions, which is typical for what we do in the Jewish religion. Does a strategy really aid in combating, let alone defining, anti-Semitism in this country, given what we have witnessed here in Pensacola and the state of Florida? That question is not only for Jews, but for all Americans must ponder on the eve of Yom Kippur. Now, I'm going to issue the priestly blessing for all of you, if you are familiar with it. May the Lord bless you and guard you. May the Lord show his favor and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you kindness and grant you peace. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
All right. Thank you.
And now some music. Number 218 and the congregation is invited to join the choir. Who can say? You're welcome to be seated, but we have a responsive reading to close out our service. We read it recently, but I felt that it was very appropriate today. Number 584, A Network of Mutuality. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds, which precipitate and perpetuate war. One day, we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Martin Luther King, Jr. At this time, we will go in peace. There are some refreshments in the conference room on the right, my right, your left. And then we will return. Those that are interested in hearing and talking and sharing and questioning are welcome to come right back in here, and Jerry will be speaking. Okay, thank you so much.